I made a mistake in the game against Arsenal versus Newcastle at the Emirates because I didn't think Mikel Arteta would come out and have a speech after the game because I didn't know. I thought it was going to happen, and I waited quite a bit of time after the game, but I didn't see it until later on. And then when I finally saw Arteta give his speech and the other players gave their speech, I was like, okay, I missed that. Now I need to cover it, and now we have to talk about this in this video. So with Mikel Arteta's speech, it just sounded like a lot of the things that you would expect. Back the team, the team's gone through a lot, the staff have done so much and behind the scenes, and everyone's done so much behind the scenes, and it took a lot out of us, and all of the regular stuff that you could probably expect from the club in terms of the amount of work that they have put into this season. And I expected that. I get it. It's been a tough season for everyone, from Arsenal, the players, the managers, the staff, and especially from the fan base, because there was a lot of expectations going into the season. And in terms of the things that have happened, whether it's been referee decisions or suspensions, red cards, and more importantly, what we're going to talk about is the injuries. It's a lot of things that have happened in this season that just hasn't gone Arsenal's way. But you could point the finger to a lot of other teams as well and say they've had problems as well. But right now we're just going to really focus about Arsenal. And it's just the thing of keeping up the standards and just trying to win against Southampton and then go on the holidays. And I think the general feeling we can get around the entire club is that the players just want to finish off the season and just take a rest because it's taken a lot out of them. And I think that has been the case over the last couple of years from Arsenal. I mean, like I said in the previous video, it's been a hat trick of second place for 3 consecutive seasons. And you just wonder what Arsenal could have done over the last 3 seasons to get more out of it and to get more success, not just in the league, but in the other competitions as well. And he is right in certain cases when he does talk about injuries, where this is a bit of the controversial thing where he says you could lose a player or two and then big teams fall from going from the title race to getting from 5th to 8th. And a clear example of that is Manchester City. The season they lost Rodri, and we saw that they were unable to get a win for a long period of time. And it took until January where they got into the transfer window, they bought a whole list of players, and eventually now they're at a point where they could potentially be level on points from Arsenal if Arsenal lose the next game, which is crazy in itself because this is Manchester City's worst season, and Arsenal, this has also been a bad season from them. So as bad as Manchester City have been, and for them to be this close to Arsenal on points, it just speaks on how bad Arsenal have been over the last couple of months, I would say, especially with the amount of draws that we've taken. But yeah, I partially agree with what Mikel Arteta is saying in terms of injuries and things not going your way, but you have to also look at what you have done over the last year, and not even the last year, over the last couple of years essentially, on what you've done during the season, what you've done in the off season, what you've done in the transfer window, how you've managed the players, and most importantly, what have you done in terms of rotation, right? Because not long ago, back in last season actually, he himself said that this is one of the thinnest squads in the league. This is one of the smallest squads in the league. Okay, fine, you admit that to everyone, but what have you done ahead of that? What have you done to solve that issue? And with Mikel Arteta, the thing that I'm not going to let go, especially with this, is the fact that in terms of the squad that you've made, essentially, a squad isn't just the first 11, it's the 25-man squad that you make. And Mikel Arteta has been here long enough where we can comfortably say that this squad is his. The first 11 and the rest, the substitutions, the reserves, they are all his players. These are the players that he chose to either keep, buy or sell throughout his entire tenure at Arsenal. So the big question that I have for Mikel Arteta is, why is it that you can't rely on your bench enough? Why is it you can't rely on your reserves enough? Why is it that you haven't rotated the squad as much as you needed to this season? Because everyone knows that this season you'd play more games than ever before in the Champions League. You also have to compete in the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. And for that, you can't rely on 12, 13, 14 players to get you through the entire season. You need to rely on your entire squad. And based on what I've seen over the last couple of years, Mikel Arteta hasn't rotated the teams enough. And that is why Arsenal got to the stage in this season where we have had so many injuries. And the other question I ask is, what sort of injuries have we had this season with all of these players? Why is it that so many of these players have hamstring injuries, whether it's Saka, whether it's Havertz, whether it may be Timber as well, I think as well, because even Timber has gone out on an injury, and hopefully he comes back as quickly as possible because he's been an integral part in the squad. But that is alongside the point that I'm making. So many of these players have this hamstring injury. And why do they have this injury? It's because they've been run to the goddamn ground. I don't understand how from last season you could be so trusting and naive to the point where you thought that this season 24-25 will go like 23-24. In 23-24, Arsenal are lucky in their injuries. For example, Odegaard was fine for the majority of the season. Everything was looking okay, but then this season he got injured, and then that started a lot of problems for Arsenal from the beginning of the season. And then even when Saka got injured, that caused even further problems. So the fact that you didn't prepare this squad enough to the point where you could rely on your bench to take care and cover for some of the players in your key positions, for example, Saka or Odegaard or whoever, that in itself tells me that you haven't adequately prepared the squad well enough from the starting 11 to the bench to the reserves, essentially, and you weren't able to rotate well enough in that regard. And even with Bukayo Saka, he's played so many games. He's played the most amount of games for Arsenal player in the last couple of years, and so much so to the point where this season against Crystal Palace he got injured and he was meant to be out for probably the whole season, but he managed to come back. And when I saw the scar on his leg, I was shocked. I couldn't believe what I saw from the pictures, and I just thought to myself, we shouldn't be playing him this season. He needs to rest. But he came back, he played, he done well in the Champions League, and he helped Arsenal get to the semi-finals. But that is the point, in the sense that Arteta was so desperate for some of these players to play that he didn't have a backup plan, in the sense that if Saka got injured, then what would happen? Because the minute Saka got injured, the league was basically done. We withered away, essentially. In the Carabao Cup, Arsenal withered away in that. In the FA Cup, same thing as well. So essentially, that's why when Mikel Arteta talks about these injuries, yes, you've had many injuries, but what did you do to solve that issue? You didn't improve the squad's depth in the summer because you got rid of more players than you bought players in. Okay, you bought in Calafiori, Marino, and you bought in Sterling on loan. And then you got rid of Smith Rowe, Nketiah, Nelson, Ramsdale, so many. I think even Elneny left this summer as well. And yeah, you can criticize the quality of these players, but at the end of the day, you need to have a squad. You need to have a bench. And I have criticized these players before in a previous video of mine, but the point I'm trying to make is that you can't go 6 years into this project now and still be complaining about the fact that you still have the thinnest squad and you still haven't addressed the depth. That is something that I'm not going to allow you to get away with. You made the squad after 5 years, and if we really want to go into it, how many of those players that you bought in the beginning of your tenure and you haven't been able to develop well enough? Let's talk about Sambi Lokonga, let's talk about Fabio Vieira, let's talk about, I don't know, Balogun as well. Balogun was in the club as well, and you let him go to Monaco. And Beer, there's so many players that I can probably name that could have been at this club, could have stayed and provided a bench option. And yes, like for example with Balogun, you did manage to get a good amount of money from that. But the point I'm trying to make is that with some of these players that you bought into this club, or even Nuno Tavares, who's doing pretty well in France, how many of those players that you bought in was developed enough to at least provide a bench option? And the answer to that is you haven't been able to do that with any of the players that I've named. And that is a big criticism that I have, because if you were able to develop these players and get them to play your system, then maybe Arsenal would have been in a better position as of now, because there's been so many misses in the transfer window. But this is where I look at the quality of the manager. When you have a player that's fresh, new, that can be molded. How does a manager address those things and build the player into their vision, right? And with Mikel Arteta, he spent so much money on these sort of signings. And I just think to myself, why couldn't you get more out of them? And you can probably blame it on the scouting as well, but sometimes managers make the best out of these sort of players. Because even this season, we looked at Fabio Vieira, and although he didn't set the world alight, we saw that when he went to Porto, he actually looked a lot better. But yeah, that is my thoughts on this post conference. Yeah, I get it with Mikel Arteta. He wants to be positive and he wants to raise everyone's spirits. And another thing that actually came to my mind about this speech that he made was the fact that he said that he didn't want to make promises that Arsenal would the Premier League or the Champions League or anything like that next season. Listen, a lot of Arsenal fans have been very patient. A lot of Arsenal fans have backed you. A lot of Arsenal fans are still in this belief state that you can go in and do wonders and you're the best man for the job. And there's a lot of, Arteta fanboys out there. Now look, I support the manager as much as anyone else, but I'm also a realist, and I will also call it out for it is this season for me was the season you were meant to win a major trophy and you didn't do it. So for me, you're on borrowed time. And in terms of for a lot of these other fans, hopefully if they see that you go into 25-26 and you don't win a single trophy, then Mikel Arteta, you have to leave. You have to go, and there has to be someone in that comes in. And this is the thing of why a lot of Arsenal fans annoy me, because the main thing that I see from them is that they don't know what it takes to win the major trophies, because it's been 20 years since Arsenal have won a major trophy in the Premier League. And because of that, there's been a whole generation of fans that have been brought up from excuses. And that is all I'm hearing from this right now. So Mikel Arteta, no, you need to go into this next season. You need to go into this transfer window and you need to find the depth that you need to get, and you need to improve that starting 11, and you need to go and win a major honor, because 6 years without a trophy is not good enough. And there's been managers greater than you that have gone through more hardship, more difficulties than you've ever will face, and they were able to get things over the line, right? And that manager was someone that you played under as well, and he had even more difficulties than you, and even he was hounded out despite the amount of trophies he was able to bring into the club. So you're no different, and you're not held into that regard that he was as well. But I'll end the video at that. Overall, it's probably a good thing that these players are gonna go away on holiday, and for me it's a good thing as well that I don't have to watch these matches anymore, because I'm tired of this league. I'm tired of this season. It's been too much for me. But anyway, that's the end of this video. Hope to see you all soon. Please like and subscribe. I know that some people have liked my videos, and some people have really disliked some of my videos and some of the comments I've made. Look, it is what it is. It comes with the game. Anyhow, see you all soon.